Welcome to another edition of the Excellent Leadership Podcast, where top leaders reveal how championship culture and relentless grit forge success. Today's guest is Matt Caldwell, CEO of the Florida Panthers, as they enter their third Stanley Cup Finals in 3 consecutive years, having been Stanley Cup champions last year, and they just won Sports Team of the Year by Sports Business Journal. Today's interview could not be more timely. From leading a tank platoon overseas to hoisting the Stanley Cup, Matt's journey is a masterclass in leadership under pressure. We'll rewind to his days at West Point, joining a tank unit deployed in Kosovo, later serving in Iraq, trading on Wall Street at Goldman Sachs, and navigating the chaotic early days of rebuilding a franchise once buried at the bottom of the NHL. Matt shares how he transformed a house of cards into a sold-out arena, one fan, one ticket at a time, by instilling a culture rooted in military discipline, humility, and relentless perseverance. Fast forward to today, the Panthers are headed back to the Stanley Cup Final, fresh off another Eastern Conference championship, cementing their place among hockey's elite. If you're hungry for insights on leadership through chaos and building something that lasts, this is your episode. Let's go. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Chad. Great to see you again.
What is the first thing you did when you won that championship? Take us to that moment in time.
So as soon as we won, I went down on the ice. You know, myself and the ownership, there's like 15 or so people that can come on the ice right away with the owner, with the players. So I was there celebrating.
Did they hoist you up in the air? And
I just let them have their time.
We wouldn't have done this without you, Matt.
Yeah. No, it was magical. And then after about 30 minutes or so, they let the families come on. So my wife came on. We had 2 little kids at the time, and she was 9 months pregnant with our 3rd kid. So here I have a great video of her walking on the ice with her high heels.
9 months pregnant.
9 months
She's
pregnant.
there.
Yeah, she was already past her due date.
She's wearing heels?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, yeah. She's a trooper. And mind you, this is like 12 o'clock at night because the game, I think, was like an 8:30 start, and it was an intense game, and there's stoppages and stuff. But in fact, my 3rd kid was due on game 5. Like that was the due date. You
said you can't. You got to hold off.
Well, we went up 3-0. If you guys remember, we went up 3-0 in the series. So I was like, oh wow, maybe we'll be able to sweep them, and then like I'll be there. You know, I won't be traveling or anything. And then they came storming back. Edmonton, won 3 straight. We went way past game 5. So not only was I professionally nervous, I was personally nervous that I'd be like stuck in Edmonton when my wife gives birth. But game 7 was on June 24th. He held out, and literally a week later, on July 1st, he was born.
Wow,
so
amazing.
It was like we went right from Stanley Cup to crazy,
celebrating the wins to celebrating life.
Yes,
wow.
Yeah. So I had my time that night with the players and all, and then we had to quickly get ready to do the parade. We had a big parade on the beach, which was magical that Sunday, and then I was right into like newborn stage. So,
how much planning do you do for a parade in the event you might win?
Yeah, we did a lot, because it was one of the hockey guys, of course. Or any sports, you're superstitious, right?
Yeah, they don't want to know you're
planning
planning.
for something. But at the same time, if we win and have a parade 3-4 days later, the last thing people want to know is like permits aren't ready, police aren't ready, security's not ready, the local government's not ready. So our business side did a phenomenal job. One of our senior VPs, I told her this was like her sole mission for like 2 weeks leading up to the finals. And she did she did all this research in the market. Cause we looked at doing maybe like a boat parade, like the Tampa Bay Lightning did that. And I think maybe the Bucks. We had these beautiful beaches. So of course we, wanted to do the beach parade. Then we thought about doing something like downtown Las Olas, Fort Lauderdale. There was a lot of options. So she did all that research, and we didn't want it to get out that much that we were doing, this work. So she did an incredible job. And I was basically telling the GM, here and there, some of the ideas we had. And then, of course, when we were up 3-0, everyone wanted to talk about it. Then it was like 3-1, then no one wanted to talk about it. But we had to spend some money because we had to build a new a stage. And so we started doing that between like games 5 and 6. But we had to take that risk because we wouldn't be able to. If we won after game 7, we wouldn't have enough time to build like this, new stage on the beach. But anyway, we got it all done, and within 5 days after the win, we were celebrating on the beach.
Congratulations!
So, yeah, it was really, really cool.
You guys have been building for that, and you've been getting a more competitive team every single year. And I'm sure nothing feels sweeter than now having that ring. You didn't bring the ring for us today.
I didn't bring the ring. I regret it. Yeah, it's the owners did an incredible job with the ring. It's our logo is on it, the shape of a shield. We have a little bit of military DNA that we'll talk about. Our owners, West Point grad. I went to West Point as well. Served in Iraq, and so the new logo and some of the style of it has like pays homage to the military.
Oh,
the players love it. And we changed it when he first bought the team. So the ring's beautiful. Players were ecstatic to have it. And
where do you keep it usually?
I have it in my closet. I have like a lockbox type thing. I brought it out to a few events. I brought it to a couple of like opening night and a couple of big games.
Amazing.
We just had the Orange Bowl here last week, the big Penn State Notre Dame game. I'm on the Orange Bowl committee, so I walked around the stadium that night. Got a lot of
big events where you want people to see it.
Yeah, I got to brag a little bit.
Well,
people want to see you brag too, though.
It's the first thing they ask. Where's the ring, right?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I'm almost sometimes like gun shy or embarrassed to wear it. It's so big. It's heavy.
It's obnoxious.
I'm afraid I could be forgetful sometimes, running in a million directions. I'm afraid I'm gonna,
absolutely
running around the arena, it falls off or something.
What finger do you wear it on?
This right ring finger. So wedding ring here, and then on this right.
But if you think weight distribution and trying to balance out your muscles, it probably only takes like a month of that ring to catch up for all the years of marriage on this hand.
Yeah. I like that.
How fun that Tampa had such a dynasty for so many years.
Yeah.
And now the Kings are Florida Panthers.
Yeah, right.
And like who would have ever thought at hockey league offices in New York, 20 years ago, that Florida would be the epicenter of hockey.
I appreciate
Congratulations.
You saying that. Yeah, and the Lightning have been, they're our rivals on the ice for sure, but off the ice, our owners are really close. I'm close to their team president, Steve Griggs. Our GM's close to their GM. Yeah. We have a lot of respect for each other.
Yeah, totally.
And, the Stanley Cup has been through Florida the last 5 years, right? So the last 2 years, we won it last year, and then, we got to the Cup and lost to Vegas 2 years ago. And then the Lightning were coming off 3 straight years.
Yeah.
2 years they won it. The third year they lost to, I think it was Colorado.
Yeah, it was.
But 5 straight years through Florida. And we just announced, I'm sure you guys saw it, we're doing an outdoor game next year. Both of us wanted to host it. We wanted to play each other. We both wanted to host it. We were both vying for it. And the NHL came up with a great idea. They're going to do 2 outdoor games. We're both going to host one in the same month. It'll be next season. We're going to go first. We'll be right here in Miami at the Marlins Stadium.
Wow.
We're going to host the New York Rangers.
Wow.
We just played them in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. And then the Lightning, about a month later at the end of January, maybe even early February, they will host Boston.
Amazing.
At the Bucks Stadium. So 2 Florida teams. First time they've ever done it. 2 outdoor games right around, within a month.
Florida. In Florida. Again, who would have ever think?
Exactly. Who would have ever thought?
The
Stanley
technology.
Cup 5 years,
right.
Outdoor games here.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. The Marlins have a roof that they can open and close in about 12 minutes.
The Bucks certainly do not.
You can keep the ice cold, and then 12 minutes before puck drop, open it up, and
unbelievable.
If it starts to rain or if the sun, we're going to do a night game. But if it gets too humid, you can just close the roof. So I think in Miami we'll be safe. In Tampa, the NHL is actually going to build a structure to have a temporary roof. They're going to open up or take down right before. So it's all out there. I really credit the NHL for pushing the envelope. Like people were worried about doing a outdoor game in general in Florida. We're doing 2 of them in the same year, and it's a kudos to both franchises. I think that the NHL is comfortable bringing the game.
Yeah, well, you guys are the crown jewels of the NHL right now for sure.
Thank you.
So Chad jumps the end to that magical moment. But it didn't start there.
No,
Take us back to you went straight out of high school into the military? Did I get that part of the story?
I went to West Point.
You went to West Point. Of course, you just said
which
that.
Is a military academy for the U.S. Army. So
why'd you choose that?
I went to public school in New York my whole life, and then for high school I went to a Catholic high school in Staten Island, New York. My dad was a cop, grew up in New York, very blue collar guy. My family all grew up in Brooklyn, and then I went to this Catholic high school, and the Monsignor of the school, old school principal, great guy. He sat me down when I was a freshman. I did well. I had good grades, played 3 sports. And he's like, you should really, go to West Point. I'm like, I know the military is a big risk. I know it's a big challenge, but it will set you up for success. It will get you a great job, whether you stay in or stay out. So I was kind of in the minority. I didn't have any family history. It's not like my uncle or grandfather was, sergeant major in the Army or anything.
But this is interesting to me, just to interrupt briefly, because in the book Grit, Angela Duckworth talks about how many people quit West Point in the first year and how most of them, according to her, dreamed of that being the school they went to for most of their life. They were in ROTC, they had family in military, and they still drop out. You just casually decided West Point one day?
Yeah, I wouldn't say casual. I mean, I when I was younger, I went to like a summer basketball camp there.
Okay.
And I mean, I was maybe in third grade. I was blown away by the place. I mean, it's magical. You really feel patriotic. It's, all the cadets are so motivated. But, I was only, 10, 11 years old or so. And, at 5 o'clock in the morning, I heard people running and chanting, and I looked outside the window and I'm like, what are these guys doing? Carrying American flag, carrying, a flag that represents their company. And I was like, I would never do this. Like, why are they getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning? But I was young, but it kind of just like these things when you're so impressionable, right? And I said, wow, but it was really cool though. It was like kind of left being, feeling like it was like a real challenge. But you have mentors in life, and in high school, I was only a freshman. And he said, you should really look at this. I went to West Point more for like the leadership experience, how great it is academically. And I knew that it would set me up for success. The military was a little bit secondary, which may sound ironic, but I knew I had to serve. I knew I had to do my 4 years at West Point and then served 5 years in the Army. But I thought, I guess I was pretty mature at 17, 18 to think like, all right, big sacrifice, but if I do this, it'll set me up for things. I look back on it now, I'm like, I can't believe I made that commitment at, 17 years old. But yeah, that book is phenomenal. She studies the freshman class. And
tell me about freshman year at West Point.
Freshman year is brutal. I mean, I graduated high school. I'm pretty good with dates, especially these kind of dates. It was June 14th, and it was literally 2 weeks later on June 29th, I was already in boot camp. So you show up, they call it R Day, reception day. They bring you in the football stadium. You're on one side of the stadium. You're there.
You're in uniform at this point?
You're just in shorts and a t-shirt. Okay. You're literally just showing up like for your like parents or, like kind of orientation. My parents are with me. 4-star general or 3-star general comes out and gives a speech and says, all right, you have 90 seconds to say goodbye to your families.
Wow.
And my mom's crying. I hug my mom and dad. My 2 brothers and sister were there. You walk across, you're on one side of the stadium, you walk across the football field, you go down into like the locker room area, and all the upperclassmen are waiting for you. They're yelling and screaming at you, give me 10 push-ups, run over here, do this. What's your name, new cadet? And they really they try to break you down and build you back up because you have all these young kids that are coming in, they're presidents of their high school, star quarterback, 1,600 on the SAT. At least that's what they used to evaluate out of, back in the day. Perfect score in the SAT. And they think who they are, right? But they've never led anything. They've never really been challenged, for the most part. So they really try to bring adversity, put you through adversity and see how you deal with pressure and let you know that you're not as smart as you think you are. You're not as cool or as tough or as charismatic as you think you are. You're going to have to work in life. And they really push you to your limit. So we came in with like 1,200, seniors from high school. And by the time I graduated, we lost about 25% of the class. We were about 800 cadets when we graduated.
So what is the most grueling aspect to it?
While you're going through it, the fact that you have 4 years of it, there's not like one thing in particular. I mean, it's very physically demanding. You have to be able to do a 2-mile run in like 13, I think it's like maybe 14 minutes, so 7-minute mile. You have to be able to do at least like 40 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, all in 2 minutes. So that could be intense. But if you played sports and you should be able to get through that. Academics are really, really intense. From 7 o'clock at night till 10, 11 o'clock at night, I was studying every night. The professors are, they really push you, a lot of homework, a lot of, testing of all kinds of different skill sets. And, but there's not like one thing in particular that like I just couldn't do. It was more like the constant grind.
Yeah.
Being 18 years old, waking up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
There's no relief, and
Yeah.
you get through 2 months of boot camp, like what the book you read. And then when you graduate, then you join like your academic company and you got to take, calculus and chemistry and physics, like real intense classes. There's no like credits you can take that are just like softies. It's all structured. It was originally an engineering school, so it's very math heavy. And then you have all these upperclassmen that are yelling and screaming at you, and you have formation every morning, right?
How early is that?
6:30 in the morning. So
Wow.
it's usually like 6 o'clock wake up.
Weekends off or?
I'd say It's probably changed a little bit. Maybe a quarter of the weekends. A lot of times it would be like a parade you have to do, or football games are mandatory to go to. So at least you can have some fun there.
And I presume no time to date or go to Buffalo Wild Wings for a second job or anything like that. I mean, your life's dedicated.
Especially as a freshman, your whole year, I think you get like one pass each semester to actually leave. But they really want to indoctrinate you.
Yeah.
And what is their goal, other than just making generally really good leaders? Are they trying to figure out what you're best at so they can determine the military path for you? Like, is their goal try to get you to stay in the military, or? Yeah,
ultimately they want lifelong, leaders that are going to become generals in the Army and lead the Army long term.
Got it.
And if you look at a lot of the historic generals, a lot of times they're traced back to West Point. But from 18 to 22 years old, their goal there is to get you a great education, teach you about time management and discipline, and be able to like self-manage yourself and really remove your ego and make you a very team-oriented leader.
Yeah.
And then by the time you're ready to graduate, it's up to you about like what branch you want to go to, what part of the Army. So they give you that kind of freedom, but they really want to just have like good leaders of character that are going to go out and stand in front of soldiers and be a great example.
And when do you get in front of? When do you start leading other men?
Right away.
As
soon as you graduate, you're a second lieutenant.
Oh, okay.
It's very, very overwhelming. So you have these 4 years of training. But it's like anything else in life. You can do anything in the classroom or in the lab, but like once you get out in the real world, you really start to figure it out. I joined a tank platoon. So my branch was armor, and we were part of what's called the 1st Infantry Division. And I showed up, they were in Kosovo when I first joined the unit. So I graduated. You remember there was like Bosnia and Kosovo. There was a lot of conflict before Iraq and Afghanistan had kicked off. And I went to Kosovo, and it was all male unit at the time, 20 soldiers, but ranging from the ages of like 18 to like 40, 45, right? So you had
18 to 45.
Yeah, you had young kids that were, couldn't get, had no direction, or, couldn't go to college, and said, I'll go in the Army for 4 years, get some good training, and then use the GI Bill maybe to go back to school later. Or you had men that were in their 40s that had families that had been in the Army 20 years, but they weren't an officer. When you go to West Point, you become a lieutenant or captain. Basically, you have your college degree and you become like a senior officer. But you can be if you don't have a college degree, you would go into like the enlisted corps, like sergeants, first sergeant, sergeant major. It's hard for the 40-year-old sergeant to be like saluting this young 22-year-old and calling them sir. But that's how the Army's set up, right? So you have to respect their wisdom, respect their experience, but at the same time, know that you're in charge.
You're held accountable.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, anything that happens with that platoon is going to fall on me. So
what habits or behaviors from West Point have shaped habits or behaviors you keep with you today? The
first one is like, try to use the word we a lot. I think I try to really make it all around the team, and a lot of times I see people talk about, I did this, I did that, or sometimes in the business world, we reward people that are like self-promoting and always getting credit for stuff. So that fuels a behavior of always trying to like have your hand up and get credit for something. And West Point really breaks that out of you, because once the people following you realize you're in something, you're in it for yourself, and you're not putting their needs above your own, you're not putting your country, ahead of like what you want day to day, they lose respect for you, because that's what the military is all about. So I've tried to bring that sense of culture and teamwork everywhere I've gone, whether it was in graduate school, whether I was working in finance, whether it was, now in the sports team. And I think people feed off that. I think people really feel a sense of belonging and inclusion, that, we're in something really special, and this guy's not just trying to get his next job or try to get promoted. He really cares about me. I think that's one thing. And then just the perseverance. Angela Duckworth talked about this. When you go through something like West Point, you go through combat and you go through some really, really dark times, first off, you got to survive and get through it, because there's a lot of people that both mentally and physically can't get through it. But once you do, it's always a constant reminder you can get through anything. You wake up on a Monday morning, you're having a tough day at work, the team's lost 6 straight, attendance is dropping, whatever it is. Not that I'll diminish it, but I always have a sense of calmness. Like, hey, the things I've done in my life, I can get through this. Like, if there's a will, there's a way. And I try not, a lot of times it helps me not get overwhelmed. So the combination of teamwork and then that grit aspect, I just know that we can get through anything if we really, really grind and have perseverance.
So Kosovo, Germany, Iraq. What are some of your key memories there that you can share?
Yeah. So I was a senior at West Point when 9/11 happened. So September 11, 2001. So that June of 2002, we graduated. So we were the first class from West Point to graduate after 9/11. And George Bush at the time, as the president, came and spoke at our graduation, said that you're all going to graduate. You're going to be deployed somewhere. So I did 7 months in Kosovo. While we were in Kosovo, the U.S. had invaded Iraq. They pulled us out, brought us back to Germany. That's where our base of operations was. And, within 6 months later, we were out to Iraq. So I was there for 14, 15 months, then came back. So my first 2.5, 3 years was very, very intense, right? And 22 to 25 years old, I was all over the Middle East and Europe. And then when I got back, we were training. We had all this experience. We were training the next unit that was getting ready to go. I'd actually gotten orders to go to Afghanistan. This was a time where there was a lot of media attention around how much could we put on the military? Guys, in Vietnam, you do 6 months. 6 months in Vietnam, and you get at least 6 to 12 months off. And we were doing 12 to 15 month tours. Guys were getting what they called stop loss. I don't know if you remember these terms in the media, but basically you're supposed to get out of the Army on a certain day, but they can, if you're deployed, they can extend you past that date. So I came out on this list of someone hey, this guy's been deployed a lot. He can't do another deployment. And I was happy to go do it. I was all, ready to go. But it actually gave me some time to reflect. And I spent my last year in Germany. And I said, there was a lot of dark and tough days, but I really loved the sense of belonging and sense of giving back. And everything we were doing was on the front cover of, New York Times or CNN and we felt like we were really making a difference. But I said, you know what? I think I want to do some other things in life. I want to start a family. I want to go back to graduate school. That stuff was very hard to do when you're deploying, every year, maybe getting a couple months off. So I applied to graduate school. I took my GMAT and LSAT out in Germany. I was going to these little testing centers. I was studying really hard. So I went from combat operations to academic rigor. And I got into Northwestern. I was, blown away. So I went to Kellogg School of Management. So I did 3 years in Chicago, and I did a law and business degree.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Law school academically was a lot tougher than West Point, especially because I'd been in this very physical environment for many years. But got through that. And when I graduated from the JD MBA program at Northwestern, I got a job in finance at Goldman Sachs. So I thought that was, I did my military time, got my graduate degree. I was from New York originally, and Goldman was always a great place that people wanted to work at. I thought that was going to be my career, and I was there for about 4 years. I became a VP.
Are there many military people, former military people at Goldman?
At the time, there wasn't.
Yeah.
There was, in fact, I was like a second or third year associate, and when the Navy SEALs conducted the operation and took down Osama bin Laden, it was on a Sunday night. President Obama came out and spoke to the nation. That Monday morning, when I came into the office, because I was in New York, it was maybe 10,000 employees. I remember being the guy that everyone wanted to talk to at the pantry and the water cooler, the whole floor. I was on a big trading floor because no one really had insight on how the military was operating, who had been over there. So it made me realize then, wow, there's certainly not a lot of veterans here, because I was the guy that everyone was coming. There was a couple of partners that I did some time back in the 90s, but as far as the last, the last 25 years of conflict, I was one of the few. Now, since then, Goldman and Wall Street firms have definitely hired a lot of military. But ultimately you got to go to a really good school to go to those places. So that usually comes down to one of the academies, and there's only so many grads, to go around that,
So what were you doing on Wall Street?
So I was in, the investment management division at Goldman. All the big banks, they have 3 main businesses. There's traditional investment banking, when companies do IPOs or mergers, whoever advises them is investment banker. Then you have the big trading floors that you might see on the movies, where these big institutions are moving money. It could be things from commodities like oil and gas. It could be stocks, bonds, any assets. And then investment management has grown a lot. it's more kind of long-term investment, putting like clients' money in like private equity funds and hedge funds. So I was on a team within the investment management division that managed money for big family offices, endowments, pensions. And that's how I ultimately met Vincent Viola, right? So Vinny, who's, the owner of the Panthers, became a big client of Goldman. And I, helped bring him on, helped manage his account. And then he took a liking to me being, he went to West Point and got out of the Army like in the early 80s. And he worked his way up through like the trading side of it, kind of the second business I talked about. So, back to your point, he hadn't met many West Point grads or veterans on Wall Street. So we had that connection.
Yeah, that's great.
And
you said you brought him on yourself. How did you?
I did, yeah. Myself and the team, and someone of his caliber had a lot of firepower behind me to show him all the things that that Goldman can offer up for him. I mean, listen, he's a very smart guy, serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He's clearly has made a lot of money for himself. He's self-made. So like, what are people going to tell him, what to do? But we had just said to him like, hey, you don't have a relationship with Goldman. You can use many different aspects of the firm. And he knew very senior people there, whether it's doing, advice for some of his businesses like investment banking or, whether we can invest some of his money. We kind of laid all that out for him and he was impressed. And, he eventually, became a client. And then after about a year of that, he asked me to come join his family office. And this happens a lot at places like Goldman where clients will kind of poach, people that they like. Because Goldman has this great recruiting process to get all these high caliber people. So, a lot of times clients say, oh, I liked working with this person. I'll have them kind of join my side of the table. So
what was interesting about that pitch to you?
I was blown away by it because I was still pretty young. I was only 34 years old. I was a vice president. And
I like that you said you're still young, 34, because there's a lot of 25-year-olds who feel like if they're not in their job yet, time has passed them by.
Yeah. I'm happy you brought that up. Don't worry about that. 25-year-old, 24. Now, don't be complacent. You should be hustling and working hard. But if you're not on a certain track, or if you didn't go to the school that you think was the target school to go to this certain job, you can always make up for it over time.
Careers are long now.
They're very long. And when I went to West Point, I didn't think I'd be in sports or finance or at Goldman Sachs. I mean, I never knew where. It's good to have long-term plans and it's good to be proactive, but doing great at like what you're doing now can open up a lot of, doors for you. So, I was hustling at Goldman for about 4 years and, Vinny became a client. We did well for him. And I never imagined he was going to ask me to come and oversee his family office. In fact, when he talked to me about
you joined to oversee the family office.
Yeah. I mean, at the time he had a partner, and he's still a partner today, Doug Sifu. He's our minority owner for the team. Doug was becoming CEO of his other business, Virtue Financial. So it was hard for Doug to, run a big, large company like Virtue full time, and then also keep an eye on, Vinny's like private assets as well. So I was going to be like a number two to Doug as he started the transition to take over Virtue. I remember when they offered it to me, they both sat me down. Yeah, I was ready to go. I was like, this is a lot of bankers' dream is to kind of go join some of these like bigger, kind of what they call buy side, clients, but really family offices. But Vinny said, listen, you got a great career. You just sort of do well in Goldman. I want you to take a few weeks, really think about this because it'll be like nonstop with me. And, one day I'm buying Taco Bells. One day I'm buying real estate in the Bahamas. One day, maybe it's a sports team. It could be a million things, but to me, that was exciting. But he also wanted me to know that I had a pretty good career trajectory at Goldman. And that kind of empathy and leadership I really appreciated. And once I thought about it, I remember going to see the partner at Goldman. Couldn't sleep the night before because he was such a good mentor to me. And I finally was starting to do well there. And now I was already leaving. And like 30 seconds into telling him that I was leaving, he's like, dude, I can't believe he didn't ask me. Like, I've been here 20 plus years. I would have loved that role, So I was very, very enlightened. And so I went to the family office and as advertised, Vinny's getting deal flow every week. We were looking at airlines, sports teams, real estate, education companies.
A lot of this is incoming too?
A lot of it's income. He's got so many, connections.
Yeah.
He's been around the block. He's got people that he knew from Wall Street, people he knew from his entrepreneurial time. He still is an entrepreneur. So,
so your role was top of funnel. Get all the incoming, do the assessment
vet it all out for him, tell him something that I thought was a good diamond in the rough. He's already got relationships with banks and private equity funds, so I had to manage his money there, tell him how he's doing. And this is typical for someone in a family office role. But he had bought the hockey team during that time, and everyone tells you this. I remember learning about this in business school. But sports ownership is you always underestimate it, because it's super capital intensive. With the player salaries, the cost of an arena or a stadium or a lot of money.
Limited cash flow usually.
Limited cash flow, right? Year to year, and then the swings of the cash. And then, especially nowadays, people that own a sports team have been very, very successful somewhere in some industry. And they usually have gotten that done by doing it themselves, right? And it's hard. I've witnessed it firsthand. I've witnessed it myself. It's hard when you've had so much success and, ultimately you're putting together a team of people and anything can happen once they hit the ice or hit the field. So it was really tough in the beginning. We were losing more money than we anticipated.
This is where you and I first met.
This is when we first met, Chad. You were one of the first people I met in sports. And
oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You were so kind to me. I knew nobody. I was still at the family office. I was still living in New York.
And because of this, he thought that I knew what I was doing because he had little did he know.
Yeah. And we did a search and ticket sales. You guys, you were wonderful. And I think that was 2014, 2015. And for 2 years, I lucked out in a sense because I was still at the family office. I was getting a little bit of a trial run. And we had went through 3 CEOs during that time. There was the one that was in place, and then we had someone from the family office, Rory, that was here, but he was more of an interim guy. And then we had someone else that was really wonderful too, but he was going to move on to some other things. Finally, in 2016, Vinny sat me down and said, listen, you've worked on the business for 2 years now. We got to do it our own way. I'm going to go with my own guy. I want you to take over as CEO. And, any middle-aged, 30-year-old sports fan, would love that. But I also knew how daunting of a task it was.
Because at this point, you're one of the youngest CEOs in all of sports, right? When you took that job.
Yeah, that was the headline for sure. I remember my PR staff checking it all, but it was April of 2016. I was 36 years old.
36.
Wow. What was the state of the business at that time?
So when Vinny first bought the team in 2014, points-wise, we were lowest in the league. We had 66 points, right? So he bought the team that was in last place in the whole NHL. And the attendance, we were like, I like to joke, there was 30 teams at the time, because Seattle and Vegas hadn't started yet. It was really 29 teams, and then we were 50. We were so far off the map.
Wow.
The Arizona Coyotes were the only team that we were in striking distance with. What was tough was the team had some initial success early on. If you remember, Wayne Huizinga was the owner. They went to a cup in its 3rd year. But then a lot of times things come down to leadership and consistency. Between 1999 and 2014, that 15-year period, it's almost like a whole generation. They had 1 playoff appearance and 3 different ownership changes.
Wow.
So it was with ownership change comes management change. And, really the last 5 to 7 years before Vinny bought the team, it ultimately was like a house of cards. They were giving out a lot of comp tickets. They were doing very gimmicky promotions just to get people, engaged with the brand. And listen, I don't blame the former, ownership and management for doing it because they were just probably doing anything to keep the lights on and get people in the building.
Yeah.
When Vinny came in, he cleared out the former ownership. He was the only owner, with a small minority in Doug. And he just said, listen, we're going to build this the right way. I don't care how long it takes. We already have low pricing. Our average ticket price was in the 30s at the time. We only had about 10,000 or so people coming to a game, but half of them were free. We only had 3,000 season ticket holders. And he just said, you know what? Tell everybody we're going to keep pricing low, but we're going to invest in the team. We're going to win. You got to pay for your tickets. We'll do some promotions here and there, but we're going to run this like a real business. So we went backwards before we went forwards. I remember us going down to about, I remember the exact numbers, 2,767, 2,767 season ticket holders. And the first year we did this, second game of the season, we played Ottawa on a Monday, which is not a big draw early in the season. And we only had about 7,000 people in the building. And it made national headlines. And people were saying, you should be moving this team, not going to work down there. But We really credit to our owner. He just had unwavering commitment to making it work.
Where did you even start with that? You could have focused your attention on so many different tactical areas, and maybe it was tactics, but strategically, where you said, okay, I've got a limited time to really make a dent in this business.
Yeah.
Where do I go first?
I started, in ticket sales. That's really the lifeblood, like getting people to buy a season ticket or just come to a game. So I put my my desk right in the middle. Well, first off, we made a ticket sales like a trading floor. We did like a bullpen style, very open,
Nice.
Like one floor where everyone would be. And I said, get rid of these cubicles, get rid of offices. Like we all got to be in the trenches together. And I put my desk right in the middle. I got this from my finance days, being in a trading firm. Michael Bloomberg used to do this at Bloomberg. And I wanted people to know, like, I'm going to be here right with them. I'll take calls with them. I'll engage with former season ticket holders. I wanted to be side by side with them. So that's on the business side. We really had a concerted like outreach to people that used to be engaged with the brand, and then reaching out to new folks. We were very involved in the community. Like we launched a foundation, and a lot of the things you see with other teams. But I think we put a lot more heart into it. We said we have 4 pillars. It's going to be giving back to veterans. We have a lot of veterans with the franchise. We want to give back. We have this platform now. Let's recognize them. We want to focus on youth hockey was the second one. Even though we knew that was going to, take a long time. You invest in a kid when he's 4 or 5 years old, get them playing, get them into a youth hockey program. You create fans for life. It's not immediate, but we knew we had to start that investment now. The conservation of the panther, the animal. I mean, that's where the team was. That's how the team was named the Panthers, and bringing awareness to sustainability and preserving the panther in the Everglades was important to the community.
That's great.
And then
you guys are literally right on the edge of the Everglades.
I mean, we are. We're right there.
It's the first thing you see when you get off the exit, basically.
Exactly. And that was another part of it. Like people said, oh, hockey's never going to work there. And then you have an arena that's out in a suburb in the middle of the Everglades. And finally we said, listen, guys, after like a year or so, we said, we're not Miami. We're not the beach. We're not Palm Beach. We are, in the middle of the Everglades. We're Broward County. Broward County owns the arena. We're going to put Broward County and Fort Lauderdale on the map, and we're going to invest in the people in our backyard. And I think people like hyper local, like literally right, Coral Springs, Plantation, Parkland, Sunrise. They're like, you know what? It's the first entity sports team company that really paid attention to us. Wow. Fort Lauderdale's always been like a little brother to Palm Beach and Miami, and we said, well, we're the county and Fort Lauderdale's team. And
what a big risk and decision to make.
Huge risk. Yeah, you nailed it, because we're basically walking away from the two richest
biggest market
and just focusing on what's local. You have to take those big swings when you're down and out so much and you're losing tens of millions of dollars. And what was happening in the past was not working, right? And that's what I told the 3,000 or so season ticket holders were like, why am I paying for a season ticket when you give tickets out to someone for free and they sit right next to me and they rub it in my face? We only have about 3,000 like real loyal fans. If we don't hold on to them, we're never going to have anything down here. Those tough crowds and kicking out the people that were getting free stuff, we had to go backwards and like invest in our core. And that core, when we did all the analysis, we went to mobile ticketing. So we had zip codes of people's credit card transactions for everything that they did, whether it was buying a ticket, merch, food, and like 65% of it was like within a 5-mile radius.
Wow.
So we said, let's get our 3,000 base up to like 10,000. Let's just get like an army of people that are all bleed red and they're all about the Panthers. And then when we get cool and good, and I wasn't even thinking about winning the Stanley Cup at the time. I just was trying to like turn the thing around. Palm Beach and Miami is going to come out. Like they, South Florida is an event town, right? When Art Basil's going on, or there's a music conference, or whatever the cool thing is happening, people are going to flock to it. Formula One now, and we said they'll come when we're cool. They're not going to come because we're investing in youth hockey. They're not going to drive an hour and a half. Yeah, it was very risky though, to your point, because Miami and Palm Beach is where a lot of the money, where a lot of the businesses are. But we had to really build this like one brick at a time. Like I'll never forget calling Doug Sifu, who's the other minority owner. He called me on like a Friday afternoon. It's like 4 or 5 o'clock, and I hadn't become the team president yet. I was still the family office, and I answered the phone. When someone on the other line answers, you can tell they're tired, beat up. It's like end of the week, and I'm usually a pretty high energy guy. He's like, "Man, what's going on?" I'm like, "I've been talking to this guy who was a season ticket holder. He had 4 glass seats. He used to have a suite. I've been working him like all week. Like I've spent like 10 hours. I'm like a chief operating officer at the time, but I got to start and lead by example. And he just called me like an hour ago. He was going to buy 1 seat in the upper level and just kind of see how it goes, which is great. You know, we'll start there, right?
Yeah.
But hard to build like a championship franchise by selling like 1 seat in the upper level for $15 at the time.
Yeah.
So I told Doug this, and I was like, God, it was just tough. Like I'm putting all this time in, and like I'm not seeing the return. He goes, well, what did the guy buy? I said, he bought 1 seat in the upper level. You know, $15 times, 40 games in the year. You're talking about like $600 for the year. It's important, but like you're not going to turn around a franchise with that. And Doug said to me, he goes, you know what? We're just going to have to build this thing 1 fan at a time. It's like the way, and I use that motto to the staff. I was like, I don't care if it's a guy you meet at the grocery store or someone you meet, your friends, kid's birthday party. We got to be relentless, and we just got to go door to door and be there for people.
Quick interruption. If you are enjoying the Excellent Leadership Podcast, I have a small favor to ask you. Could you please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review? It helps us grow the Excellent Leadership Podcast community and ensures we keep bringing you top-tier guests, powerful insights, and impactful episodes. Thanks for your support. Now, back to the show.
How do you recruit good salespeople that's not the most exciting pitch for most people.
Yeah.
Hey, we're a losing franchise. We're going to start by selling $15 seats
I know.
in the upper deck because that's what's marketable right now.
In the beginning, it was hard. In the first couple of years, I was really trying, hired folks like Chad, brought in some good like young talent, but we had a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to do is like build the right like culture and business principles on the business side so that whenever the team really took off, like we'd be ready to capitalize. So while we were doing this in parallel fashion, we were also investing a ton in the hockey team, right? And we had a GM at the time that we love him, still loyal to him, that we wanted to stick with. We had some spurts. Like our first season, we were like the most improved team after we inherited a team that was the worst in the league. And our second year, we went to the playoffs. We won the division. I thought we were like making progress. And then we became this like playoff bubble team. And in sports, you want to either be like rebuilding, or you want to be like truly a top 10 team.
Yeah.
And it sounds easier said than done, but like 20 teams think they're a top 10 team, right? But there's only 10 of them so you start fooling yourself that you might be like 16, like really legit. And you're like right outside of making the playoffs, 17, but you think you're a top 10 team. So you're spending all this money, you miss the playoffs, and then you have a middle of the road draft, you're in the middle of because you maybe finished 17th, so you're like in the middle of the league for the draft position. So like you're in no man's land.
Yeah.
And we were like that for a couple of years. And then we went really big one off season. We got Joel Quenneville, famous coach in Chicago. We signed Sergei Bobrovsky, big time goalie, had won goalie of the year twice. And then COVID hit. and we were having a good season. And when you're in such a deep hole and you're trying to dig out of it, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 5 steps forward, 2 steps back, and it's hard.
COVID is 10 steps back,
and then it's like God. You're finally getting out of it. But listen, COVID was equal for everybody.
Yeah, it was.
But when you have a nice base and you have a good culture and you have revenue already in, you can withstand that even more. But our owner was unbelievable. He was like, keep everybody employed. We didn't lay off one person. We didn't make any salary cuts. He's a very well-capitalized guy, but he's also super loyal. I mean, I'm not sure of any other team that did that. We were every team was staring down the barrel of no games.
Right.
Then when we started playing games, there was no fans in the arena. This is not a worst-case scenario that anyone planned.
Yeah.
And we got into the playoffs, and we lost to the Islanders in the first round, and we just looked terrible. And if you looked at our rosters, people would say we had a better roster, but it just wasn't clicking. We didn't have the right culture. We didn't have good alignment. And then we did a big GM search. It was our first time actually doing, because we had stuck with a guy that we originally had inherited, Dale Talon.
And hockey reports into you as CEO?
Yep. And we were very clear at the time that when we were doing the GM search that, we were going to have, a CEO, myself, a GM would report into me. Our owner is very hands-on. So if he wants to call you after a game, he's going to call you. If he wants to call a scout or analytics, this is how we are. And I think we just like really identified how we want to operate, and we were very transparent and open, in the process, right? And
that's what matters, because I tend to find executives get frustrated and often leave when what they thought the job was didn't actually align with the reality of the job. But if you know what the job is and you articulate that fairly, no one's going to be surprised when they get a call from the owner directly, or no one's going to be frustrated when they're challenged.
Yeah, so. That's one of my biggest pieces of advice is like just doing a real deep introspective look. I mean, at the end of the day, the owner is the owner of the team, right? And we can say all we want about, hey, the CEO should be able to do their job, and the GM should be able to do their job, and the captain of the team should do. And every owner is going to empower those people to a certain degree, but they are the owner, and they have to have some say or some vision, or and you have to define what that is. And I think to your point, Chad, in the beginning we were trying to feel ourselves out and try to assimilate into how the sports and hockey culture was, but ultimately I said, Vinny, and I'm so close to Vinny. We've worked together for so long, and we're like family at this point. And I said, let me day to day oversee everything, but obviously you can call the housekeeper, you can call it's your team. And I have no ego that I'm not going to get upset if someone's supposed to be reporting to me and the owner wants to check in with them. So he has to have the right CEO that's like that, right? I don't know if many CEOs want to do that. And then when we did our GM search, this is the one thing that COVID helped us out with. We did 23 interviews, and you guys are in the business. You know how hard it is to do and we did it over a 3-week period.
Wow.
And so this is where COVID helped, because we did it all on Zoom, right? No one can travel. This was like in August, September of 2020. So it was like the heart of COVID. We did a 9 a.m. interview, and we scheduled it for 2 hours from 9 to 11, and always bled to noon. And me and Vinny's son, Michael, did it because Michael.
And this is a structured interview, same questions of everybody, or how do you build the flow?
We came up with like a 5-6 page list of questions we wanted to go through, and it was myself. And back to my family office stuff. When I went full time on the Panthers, Vinny's son, Michael, took over the whole family office, and me and him are like brothers. And I'm close to all of Vinny's sons, but he's more like day to day with the Panthers. And so it was Michael and I did all the first round, and then 1 o'clock we'd maybe give Vinny an update, try to throw some food in us. And then we went from 1 to 3, maybe it was 2 to 4. And that always bled to 5, 6 o'clock. We did this over a 3-week period just to get through the first round.
Yeah, of course.
Because we scheduled 2 a day for 3 weeks.
What were you looking for at that time? What attributes?
What we described to them is listen, we're super intense. We're passionate. We want to win the Stanley Cup. We're not a team that's doing this for a hobby. We're not doing this for his family legacy out. We're here to win. We're serious. But at the same time, we're not just giving you the keys to the kingdom and we're going to get quarterly updates. We want to know, everything's going to come down to communication. I told every GM, I'm never going to tell you who to draft. I'm never going to tell you who to trade. I'm not going to tell you who to play. That's all your job. But we need to talk every single day. And I won't micromanage you, but I just need information. And all this stuff sounds basic, guys, but it's really, really hard to get people comfortable and communicating. And I said, the more you communicate with me, the more I can help you with the ownership, because they like it. They want to know what's going on. They have this huge asset. We're still at a big loss. We're telling you, we're going to still, our revenue's down here. We're going to spend to the cap. So we want to know, want to know what's going on. It's that simple. Now, you have to build trust with people, because a lot of times people think you want to know what's going on because you're trying to push them out, or you're trying to, put your own guy in, and you got to rinse out all that toxic behavior. So we told everyone, hey, we're going to be doing a long-term contract with someone, and we want someone to really be our hockey ops, what we call operating partner. Because when Vinny talks about making investments in businesses, he always wants to find the operating partner that's going to run the team or run the company. It's not about just making $1 million angel investment in an entrepreneur and then just letting them go. It's you're going to be my operating partner on this business. He's never been very passive, so we wanted to replicate that model on the hockey side. We want someone that is going to communicate with us. We're always going to have your back. We're going to ask questions. We may challenge you, but it'll always be your decision at the end of the day. We tried to look for the person that would be most comfortable in that environment. And we said, it can't just be all about analytics, even though we love data. We come from finance world. It can't just all be about scouting and people having, a gut feeling about an observation and seeing a guy play once, 3 years ago. We want rigor. We want process. We want, if I want to join a meeting, I don't want any egos, or I don't want Vinny to walk in the room and everything gets quiet. We're all in here, guys. We're trying to do the greatest turnaround, certainly in hockey, maybe in sports. We need absolute buy-in from everyone. And you can tell when you're that upfront and open, and I said, Vinny's wife, Teresa, or one of his sons, they may want to call and join the team playing at one point. They may want to come in the locker room. Like, we're a big this is an old school family business. Like, the good news is there's only one owner, really, Vinny, and Doug is 5% owner, but he knows how he operates. You got one guy with me. You don't have 10 owners coming after you. You don't have a big board of directors. But you gotta embrace us, because that's just how we are. We're like an old school family business. You can tell from the people there was people squirming. They were, asking a lot of questions, worried more about like structure and communication other than like proving their hockey prowess. But Bill Zito, first off, he comes from an Irish and an Italian family. So he's got the Irish mix with me, and he's got the Italian mix with the Violas. So he's got probably two crazy families like we do.
He's used to it.
And he's super smart. He went to Yale, and I'm not saying someone had to go to Harvard or Yale to be the GM. When Vinny asks a question, he's going to give him very deep, articulate answers. But at the same time, we can't just have a book nerd that doesn't connect with players and can't get them to feel comfortable and get them to sign and can't communicate with the coach. But he spent 20 years as an agent, so he knew the player side of the business. He had just done 7 years in Columbus. And actually, his work with Columbus was really important to us because, when Vinny buys the team, he wants to be the New York Rangers like tomorrow, right? and every year we were trying to like compete with the Rangers in Boston and Toronto. And finally we were like, Vin, we're at the bottom of the league. Why don't we try to like look at like the team at like 20 to 25 and like, let's baby step this, and when I talk about 20 to 25, I'm talking about from a revenue standpoint, ticket sales, sponsorship. Yeah. And Columbus was impressive to us because they had like a 7-year run where they made the playoffs like 6 out of 7 years. They had a couple years. They beat the Lightning 1 year in the first round. They hadn't won it. They didn't, but they had good success. They had packed their building. Columbus is not the biggest sport. I mean, it's got Ohio State, but it's not like you're in New York or Chicago or LA.
Yeah, it's a small market.
Small market.
College town.
Somewhat newer team.
Yeah.
So we looked at them. We looked at Carolina. Tampa, of course, is always the model. So we liked that he had been in a market that you have to hustle and work hard. You're not just in, open up your doors in Madison Square Garden, everybody shows up. It came down to alignment. Like, I knew what the owner wanted, and I knew we wanted someone that was hungry, that wasn't just going to say, hey, I got to do things the way I always want to do it. And it was a perfect marriage for us.
That's amazing.
And I don't know if there's like I don't know if there's like a template that you can just like hand to someone, at least in sports, for like, these are the job qualities that I'm looking for. I think it's more about, you got to start with yourself and what you're trying to build. And then once you have that identity, go find someone that's going to be comfortable in it.
Yeah, and you've proven something, because you mentioned in there the system that you wanted to operate in, where a GM reported into you, ownership gets involved, and some of the GM candidates were skeptical.
Yeah.
Because they had probably seen situations before where it looked like that system failed, but perhaps it was the culture within that system that wasn't the right culture, or the communication within that system. Because you can have different systems.
Yeah.
All of them have proven successful.
Exactly.
In terms of the reporting relationships there.
Yep.
But has it been articulated correctly? Do you have the right people in those seats? Do they have trust with one another to do jobs? And still to today, you don't choose your players?
Still to this day.
All right, good. You've held true to your promise.
You kept your promise.
Vinny, once in a while, Vinny will call.
Will you have conversations though, being like, hey, that's our most popular player on social media? Like,
not really.
No.
I mean, Bill and I talk every day. I was just chatting with him right before I came up here. We just launched season ticket renewals last week. We went, a little bit earlier than most teams. We did do a pretty significant price hike, given all of our success the last 5 years. We just won the cup. A lot of the people that were here 10, 12 years ago that were loyal to us are saying, hey, this is, we were here from day one, like on a year-over-year percentage basis, this is a lot. And I empathize with that. I remember them. I was here, but I also tell them, hey, we did a lot to get rid of all the comps and promotions, and we still have one of the lowest, average ticket prices. So like, even with this increase, we're not even coming close to like league averages. Like, we're literally still in the bottom quarter. So, but there's a lot of blowback. So I got Zito and Coach Maurice. They're coming with me on Wednesday night. We're gonna, I don't know if this podcast will be out by then, but Wednesday night, all the fans will be in our arena. And
you guys doing a watch party?
We're doing like a watch party.
I love that.
Yeah. But I think that goes to our culture, right? Like, I got my head coach and GM right with me,
yeah,
talking to the season ticket holders directly. Like, hey, I know you guys got a pretty big increase. This is why. We're not running away from it. Yeah, on Friday, I was back on the sales floor all day on Friday, right next to the service staff. right where we started, like taking some phone calls. And,
Wow.
The majority of people, majority of our fans are like, hey, we knew this was coming. But there's certain people that are saying, hey, I'm in the upper level. And, on a percentage basis, I'm going up 40%. I mean, that's a lot, but when you're starting from a low base, we kept pricing pretty low for a long time. We did small increments. We wanted to fill the building up, but we're sold out now.
Wow.
So it's time. But I give that anecdote just because Bill and I have that relationship, and I need him for the business side. He needs me for things on the hockey side. But I might ask him some questions, but you got to trust his judgment. And clearly he's got a great track record already.
Yeah.
So Vinny, once in a while, I'll call him and say, can I play some fantasy hockey with you? And, we'll go back. But he's got that right as the owner.
It's one thing to increase prices and to sell out stadiums when the team's successful, like you're now starting to do. But you said earlier, you were starting to build the foundation so that when on-ice success came, you were prepared for it.
Yeah.
But do you remember early days winning a big sponsor solely on like the vision of what you were building versus like we're here already?
Yeah, it's a great question. So think about it. When we announced that we were getting rid of all the comps and kind of all the gimmicky ways to just like fill the building, because we were just very upfront. To us, it was like a house of cards, because not only do you have people not paying, but then when someone doesn't pay for their ticket, they come late.
Yeah.
They don't actually spend money on food and because they're not bought in. Like they're not a real fan.
Right.
Someone just like forwarded them a ticket, or they got a ticket at a restaurant or something. And they leave early. You're not really long-term, you're not building something. So when we made this announcement, there's a lot of sponsors who bailed on us. I mean, I don't want to say the sponsor's name, but I remember the guy called me and saying, this is great for your business, but in the short term, your attendance is going to go down and we're paying you for eyeballs. So yeah, I get you trying to fix this long term, and I said to them all, like, hey, stick with us for this next year or two. Like, we have to do this in order to like turn, come to, if you don't want to go up in price, you want to, maybe take a little bit of a discount or stay where you're at, but like, just hang in there. A lot of sponsors did leave, but we had folks like a Dex Imaging, which is a local office printing company. We had Baptist Health, we had JetBlue, AutoNation. They all believed in our plan, and we said to them, hey, just sign 1-year deals with us. Like, let's not, maybe we don't want to lock you in case it doesn't work out. And they saw the progress, because we took a step backwards, but we had some success. And then we started getting them, it was just chipping away. We literally went from like 7,000 to 9 to 10,000. And then we started getting to like 13, 14,000 fans a game, which was better than where we started, but we still had 19,000 seats to sell, So until we really got through COVID and started winning these last 5 years, that's when we really started to sell out, So we basically got to like 60, 65% full, and then the winning is really taking us. Yeah.
Can you talk about flexing and adapting leadership styles?
Yeah.
Because in the military, it's known for discipline, often quite authoritative style, and you would never want a senior military officer, a 3-star general, to say, guys, what do you guys think we should do today?
Right.
What do you think our plan of attack should actually be? But yet in business, you have a lot of organizations where that's the expectation, that the CEO is asking others, hey, you're the expert, you tell me what I should do.
Yeah.
And at the same time in business, you can't say, why are you smiling, cadet? Drop and give me 50.
Right.
So, but yet both of those leadership styles are necessary in different environments. When do you know to put on one hat versus another? As a leader, how do you know when to flex the military muscle versus the more democratic muscle?
Well, first off, I would say, since I've left the military, I've definitely leaned more on the democratic, collaboration, kind of empathetic, model. And what I noticed is that when I was in the Army, there was definitely senior officers and senior enlisted men and women that were like, hey, just take my command, do what I say. And by the way, there's a lot of moments for that, right? Because especially in combat, you got to make quick decisions. You can't be deliberating. So you have to just take the orders. But I found, like, when I got out, I said, I can't expect everyone in the civilian world to know the experience that I went through and know that when I say, hey, just get this done, or just say, yes, sir, like, it's going to be hard for them to really grasp, like, where I'm coming from. So I got to, like, build that trust first with them. I thought about, like, when I was in Iraq and I'm in these communities where I don't know anyone I don't know the local police, I don't know the local mayor, the local sheik. who am I to come in and tell them how to run their country or run their small government? And I think about the times when I spoke with them and I used interpreters, and I didn't speak Arabic, and got them to like, I can feel them saying, this guy really like wants to know how I think this, government order should be, how we should set up we're literally setting up like local governments and local ways of keeping things accountable and bringing services to these local communities. And that pivotal experience of having, senior enlisted guys that I had to lean on their wisdom, I took that from the military. And so when I came into sports, I said, hey, I don't care that I went to West Point. I don't care I went to Goldman. I don't care if I have a law degree. All that shit's out the window. No one cares about that if we only have 5,000 people in the building. Right. No one's going to say, oh, yeah, but this guy's got a really good resume. Yeah. That's bullshit, right? All people care about is like the actual results and building a brand. So all these folks that, have been in the industry, have been hustling in ticket sales and hustling in sponsorship, I listened to all of them and I pushed them and incorporated all their years of experience. Now, at the same time, I told them, guys, we can't just do what you did in Philly or New York or Boston, because we're in the trench warfare down. We're in the middle of the Everglades, right? With a million things to do down here and a team that's been terrible for 15, 20 years. So you can't just whip out the same playbook and expect that to happen. We got to get out and do things more grassroots and really encourage people like locally that this is the place to be now. So there was times where I would challenge them, but I also really leaned on the sports experience. So people like Peter Luco and Jim Willits and Greg Reber, these are guys that have all been in the sports industry for many years. I picked their brains and leaned on Charlie Turano. And they were pivotal for like really making us professional and getting our sports business expertise. So anyway, Chad, it's a long-winded answer because I've thought long and hard about it. I've leaned more on those experiences in Iraq and experiences with more senior enlisted people, because that's how I really build their trust, And in the military, you always have a fail-safe. You can be like, all right, just shut up and do what I say. You can't do that in the civilian world. It's just not, no one's going to respond to you.
Well, going back to 36 years old, taking over the team, you'd come from finance. Yeah. You'd come from family office. We were investing and managing a lot of different money and asset classes. You come in and now it's the gritty work of selling tickets. Yeah. You weren't an expert in that lane. And I would guess, although you had really sharp, dedicated people internally, by definition of being last, they may have not have, they didn't know what they didn't know of what best in class looks like, per se. Yep. I guess general question is like, how did you learn the craft of running a sports team? You mentioned a little bit. It sounds like you're not afraid to pick up the phone and call your peers across the league. Yeah. Or how often were you doing that back then? A ton. Just cold calling your peers? Or even, was it just the NHL? Was it business leaders? Was it? Yeah, it was mostly NHL. So we made an announcement in April of 2016. We had just made the playoffs in like our second year owning the team. And we'd announced that I was taking over as CEO like right before that playoff series. And it was like middle of April. And I'm at my desk, my office. We're getting ready for a game in a couple hours. Not a lot of people in sports knew who I was. I didn't come from the industry. And, if it's not someone from the industry, sometimes it's like a family member or something. I didn't have a Viola last name or anything. So a lot of people are like, who is this guy? And my office line rang, and it was Luc Robitaille. He was a Hall of Fame hockey player, president of the LA Kings. And he said, hey, he's got a pretty thick French-Canadian accent. He said, hey, Matt Caldwell? I said, yeah. He's good. This is Luc Robitaille. I was like, I was kind of stunned. He goes, you know who I am? I was like, damn, as a fan, I grew up watching you. He said, I just wanted to welcome you to the league. Anything you need. And be careful what you wish for with me. If you offer something up, like I jump on it right away. Yeah. So I went out to go see him maybe a few weeks later and like spent like 5 hours with him. Wow. And that was pivotal to me. And he said a lot of great things. He was in LA and he said, Matt, listen, like it's not necessarily rocket science. Like you got to get out and like really make people feel like they're special. They can do so much with their entertainment dollar. You got to make, great game presentation. You got to bring the energy into the place that people want to be engaged with it. But all that being said, you got to win, right? Or at least you have to have like the hope of winning. And the markets, the fans are not dumb. They know when you guys have a good GM and a good coach and everybody's rowing in the same direction. So he gave me so much advice. So like that gave me a catalyst to reach out to the Steve Griggs of the world, and Sean Henry from Nashville is a great guy. Hugh Weber at the time was at New Jersey Devils.
Matt Majeka and Minnesota Wild. I mean, I can go on and on. I can really go through every single team. Amy Latimer in Boston. And sports is really cool because we compete so much, but we're in different markets. So like off the ice or off the field, like you don't mind sharing some best practices, with people. So, and you do have a pretty good collegial environment. And I mentioned names before, Peter Luco, Jim Willits, these guys all came to us early on and worked for us. And then they moved on to other teams, but that was pivotal to getting my training wheels going, and
at this stage now, you fast forward, you're winning championships, or you're competing for championships. You win one. And where do you spend the majority of your time at this stage of the evolution of the Panthers?
Yeah, now, especially like these last 2 years, I'm finally becoming like more of a strategic, like long-term thinker with the team, right?
Yeah.
I've been so
You've been in the trenches for a long time.
Yeah, I really haven't been a CEO, I guess. I've been like a platoon leader, and trying to get the team like turned around. But like we have a great GM and coach now. They're signed long-term. The hockey team's doing great. They know where I am. They don't need me at practices or on the road. Maybe once in a while I'll jump on some trips. Obviously playoffs I will. It's not like I need to be babysitting them. On the business side, we've hired our executive staff. We have a great, chief revenue officer, chief operating officer, CFO. So I spend probably maybe a third of my time like chatting with hockey ops, maybe 40, 50% of my time, checking with the business ops folks. But really it's about, what are we doing with our arena? What are we doing with development? Are we going to really blow this out to be like a big multi-use kind of district franchise? And, where we are in Broward County, we're in Sunrise, in the western suburb. There was many years where we thought we would want to try to go downtown to Fort Lauderdale. And even with that process, I sometimes see sports teams that they're negotiating and jockeying and trying to get multiple, parties against each other. I'm not, my opinion, I think like, at least with us, we're in Broward County, they own our building. We were very upfront with them. We said, listen, we got to do this together. We can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. We would need your help to do a new arena. Fort Lauderdale would be amazing. It's downtown. It's close to the beach. So we worked, hand in hand with them confidentially to see if that was going to work. Then COVID hits. South Florida blows up. Property prices. We were just talking about this before. All these people coming down. It's so much. It's probably 1.5, maybe even 2x more expensive to do an arena, that we were thinking 2017, 2018 to do it now in 2025. Couple that with like the last 5 years, we had a ton of success. Place is packed. We said to them, listen, we might be able to make it work here. For us, like why have to work with the county on like, $1 billion plus, new arena? We can do, a fraction of that cost in the arena. We have a bunch of it's about 70 acres of land around the arena. Why don't we focus on making this like a Battery, Atlanta Braves style district, multi-use district. So I've been negotiating that for about, 2 years now. We just announced in September. We have a term sheet that's signed.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we got the whole arena lease extended, monstrous deal. And then we have like a 4-year window here to submit a plan for development. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah. So
rewind for us 2-3 years when the RSN world was absolutely getting shaken up and turned upside down. You were one of the innovators in this space and figured it out really well early on.
I appreciate that.
What happened behind the scenes there?
When Vinny bought the team, just like a lot of the stuff in the franchise, we had the worst local media rights deal. We were only getting $6 million per year. To put that in perspective, most teams are in the $15 to $20 million range. Bigger teams are in like the $30 million range. So we're getting, you could just imagine what that does for your P&L. I mean, that's a major mover. And this was just, past ownerships had to take a deal, and this was like an old Fox Sports deal that we inherited. So when we came up for renewal, it was in like 2019, 2020, right around COVID. We had put a lot of time and effort into, getting that deal up, right? And Sinclair had just bought the Fox, the Fox RSN. So we worked on a renewal, we worked really hard. And we were one of the first teams then to say, hey, if we don't get a deal with you, we're going to do our own DTC. And we were crazy enough to do it. We were negotiating with them in November, December, and we said, if you don't give us an answer by like early January, we're about to do season ticket holder renewals. And as part of their renewal, we want to give them a DTC option. Maybe we do the first year free, but we're just going to go all digital. And this was like 2000, like right around COVID. It wasn't where it's gone today. So they wound up giving us an increase. And that was a major, big win. We got to like league averages. And then a year later, they declare bankruptcy. usually it was me always running all over the place, but we just hired some good executives on the business side. We hired a gentleman from the Flyers, Mark Zarther, complete studies, our chief strategy officer. He had some like PR broadcasting experience. I said, listen, I'm going to give you like the guideposts, but you got to spend like the next 6 months like going after this. And we talked to everyone. We talked to, local CBS affiliates. We talked to Gray TV, Scripps. We looked at Amazon, DTC options. But we basically just said, when you come from a standpoint of like fighting for survival and like trying to get to break even, and you finally just change this deal to get more money from your local media rights deal, you just have this mentality that, you can't go backwards from there because you know how bad it was, So I just couldn't take the risk of taking a 25% discount or possibly not being on TV or, our fans getting shut out. The other thing, I know I'm bouncing around a lot, but when we went to the Cup 2 years ago, when you have success like this, obviously on the ice, you have a lot of domino effect with your revenue the following year. So like every year we've been like breaking revenue records because we just, quite frankly, don't have a lot of pass to go off. But when we went to the Cup against Vegas the following year, ticket sales, sponsorship, merch, everything's off the charts. Our TV ratings were flat year over year. So we dug into that. And I'm like, how is this possible? Every single thing else, social media is up, single game tickets. I mean, things were up like 20, 25%. How could just one thing be flat? And ultimately what we concluded is, more people are tuning in, but if people are dropping cable subscriptions, the people that are dropping are cutting it or mitigating the increases we're getting from folks that are tuning in. So that was another big thing. It's like, we can't just be on cable. We need other options. So the combination of like, we couldn't go backwards again. We had to get more viewership because we're in growth mode. We wound up doing a great deal with Scripps, and the league let us do contingency deals. They worked out a deal with Bally's. So we had that like in the hopper ready to go. And then once Bally's couldn't work out a deal with Comcast in our market, we just went to them and said, listen, you're going to lose money on our deal now. Let us get out of this. And we just applied pressure. We just, there's no rocket science, man. It's like good old like blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, but it's clear that like you like to get into the big, hairy issues and solve it yourself.
Yeah, because so many times I've run away from them and they always come up to, they'll come up to bite you at some point.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you've built a phenomenal leadership team. We know many of them, and they're wired like you in many ways of just like high intensity. They work their tails off. Grit is a good word, I think, to describe it.
I appreciate you saying that because like it took us a while to do that, but it goes back to what I was saying to Chad. Like, you got to know what you're looking for, and you got to stick to that, you know.
On like managing really high performers like them. Yeah. What is your method of giving feedback and ensuring that even though you're best at what you do, there's always room for improvement?
Yeah. This is a good one because high performing people, they want to get better. Ultimately. They want to hear feedback. They love sit downs. I wish I had the time to do like quarterly sit downs. And I should be more disciplined about it. But a lot of times I just get pulled in a lot of directions. Sometimes Vinny still thinks I work at the family office, In addition to like running the sports team, he's got me like...
You're looking at another Taco Bell?
Yeah, exactly. And I could be pretty scatterbrained. So what I've done, and again, I've told everyone this during the interview process, I got this from the military. It's called like spot rewards, like right on the spot. Like we have a good mission, we get back, boom, like someone gets like a 4-day pass, or it's like immediate, like right at the moment. It's usually on the positive side. On the negative side, we have something called an AAR, after action review, where no matter how tired you are, no matter what happens on the mission, someone can get killed. We always have to come back and talk about it. Like it could be 4:00 in the morning. And that took a lot of discipline because sometimes you come home and say, guys, I just wanted to have some rest. But if you don't do it in the raw moment, you'll never get like the real learning experience. And the farther you get away from the moment, you'll start to justify things and change it. So what I'm getting at is I try to give live constructive feedback all the time, right? So our CFO is phenomenal. We're just doing the big county negotiation. Like as soon as we got off the call, I went in his office. I'm like, hey, you can't say this, this, and that, And he's like a little bit stunned because we just had like this 2-hour thing and like I picked up on something. But if I don't do it like then and there, and I think it startles people a little bit, but I think they really, really appreciate it, and I'm usually pretty good at giving positive stuff, but you got to stay disciplined on telling people right at the moment. So I've committed to always like at least 2, like a mid-year check-in, and then, end-of-year discussion, end of the fiscal year, talk about salary, good, bad, everything and then throughout the year, I try to give them just like live feedback on the spot. Yeah.
What advice would you give to other young, aspiring, type A, very ambitious, competitive people who they aspire to be in your seat one day?
I think I alluded to this a little bit earlier. Like being great, like wherever your feet are at, like whatever job you're doing, like crushing that role and being the best VP of sponsorship that you can be, even if you know in your mind you don't want to be in sponsorship the rest of your career. Like that's the best way to impress your bosses and then like be picked for something else. The moment that your leadership feels like you have like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and like you're trying to, plan the next position or role, or at least for me, I don't like when people have agendas like that. I like when people run through the walls and earn it, and then good leaders will then pick those people up and make sure that they get promoted and all. Now, the problem with what I'm saying is sometimes if you don't self-promote or don't put yourself in those situations, it just might take longer. But I find that ambition's great, but ambition with screwing over your buddy, or like, letting your ego get so far ahead of you that like you're not worried about your job right now.
Yeah.
I think that's you're being disloyal, and ultimately those if right now I was working on becoming the CEO of the New York Giants in football because my dream was to be in the NFL and I'm from New York and I got 1 foot in over here and I 1 foot over there, Vinny's going to see right through that. And that's not right to, the people that I'm working for right now. Over time,
your reputation will kind of speak for itself. Yeah. What about a similar related question? We place a lot of first-time CEOs into their roles. In fact, I think the last 2 CEO roles we did, major franchise, it was the first time they were becoming a CEO. What advice would you give to those people on how to ramp up and be successful early on?
I mean, for me, I think it starts with like knowing your ownership. What are they most interested in? I find, and not just because Vinny's a numbers guy, I find like the more you have like your handle on the P&L and where you stand today and your big deals and like the really minutiae details of it, almost like become an accountant first. Because when you're talking to people that, own an asset and you don't have like real accurate answers at the tip of your fingertips, they don't think you're like really know your business, at least that's what I've experienced. And not just with Vinny, but others. How much our naming rights partner pays us? Where's our ticket sales revenue at? How much, is our county deal at? How much are expenses here? It may sound like a big homework assignment, but like take those first few weeks and like be an accountant and like have that all, under wraps. It also can make you a better leader because you know where to spend your time, because you do have to focus on the biggest, resource components of your business or your biggest revenue line items. So I think that's very important. And then really taking the time to write out like what your leadership principles are. I think people sometimes think this is like buzzwords and values that you just put on a wall. But I really like took weeks, like this most recent management team that I I really like wrote down the 10 things I care about the most.
Oh, that's cool.
And they got to be thoughtful and like personal to you. They can't just be like work hard, be a good team leader and, be strategic, which is super important. All those things, I've talked a lot about teamwork and working hard today, but you got to like dig into like how you like to operate day to day. So write them all out and sit with your people. The 5, 6, 7, 8 people you have reporting to you, the more that they are like totally bought into how you want to lead, you just like multiplied yourself, know? So,
anyway. They need to be able to catch and communicate and amplify the vision and culture you're trying to build. And if you don't have them right, there's no chance the next layer down in the organization is going to operate the way you're looking to operate. Yeah, 100%. You nailed it. What's your biggest takeaway from the military and biggest takeaway from Wall Street that you still apply in your job today? Takeaway from the military is if you always do something for like the unit, for the greater good, or for a sense of purpose, you're always going to feel better about like who you are. The moment you start, letting ego creep in and you start like doing things to make yourself look good, like over the long term, you're not going to be happy. Like my happiest moments are like
when I see my teammates doing well, or I see, Mark Zarthor land the Scripps deal, and like I empowered him to do that, and I'm helping him behind the scenes, or I see Sean Thornton land the naming rights deal. I'm not trying to sharp elbow those guys. Now I'm comfortable with who I am, and I have this great owner who's got my back. I know that there's pressures to like make it all about yourself, but the happiest I've ever been is when like the team is has that feeling I had in the military, where we always have each other's back, and I always try to replicate that no matter where I go. From Wall Street, they like being at Goldman, like the numbers and like really just like knowing your shit, like cold. It was a very smart analytical place. So if you started talking and you started doing like hand wavy answers, people would call you out on your BS, and I think and I was also in sales at Goldman, which, by the way, when we talk about ticket sales and sponsorship, I did grind a little bit there where I was making cold calls and all. So I knew the skill set of it. It was just a matter of like how to do it in sports. Like I wasn't the type that could just like walk in a room and just like BS someone on why they should buy like a certain Goldman hedge fund. Like I had to like know it cold. And I always find the person on the other side, when they know you like really know what you're talking about, they just give them more confidence. So like that, like my preparation now, and like before I go in for a big meeting with the county and stuff, like that rigor, I didn't have that before Goldman. Even though West Point was a super intense place, the intellectual rigor part I got from being in finance.
I love that answer.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
This has been such an enjoyable and engaging conversation. We're going to wrap with 7 questions we ask everybody.
All right.
It's what we call the 7 question blitz.
Okay.
What sports event have you never been to that you would love to attend?
I was going to say the Derby or the Masters. I just knocked those 2 out.
Did you?
Just recently.
In 1 year?
Yeah, like back-to-back years.
Did they fulfill?
They fulfilled unbelievable. Those are my top 2 of my favorites today.
Wow.
I still haven't I've been to a Super Bowl. I haven't been to a NBA championship. So I grew up a big Knicks fan. So I still haven't been to one of those. I've been to MLB. Would love to go out to like the British Open, like something golf in Europe. Ryder Cup would be another one.
Is golf your favorite sport to play free time?
I say it is. I just never get out. I'm so hyper, and one thing I'm trying to work on is like being strategic and being more calm. So
being more calm.
It's like Ryder Cup, British Open, NBA championship.
That's great.
Sorry, I know I named a couple.
No, it's great.
What 3 people, living or historical, would you want to play around and golf with?
So short answer is I think like the league commissioners, Gary Bettman, Roger Goodell, Adam Silver, Robert Manfred. I'm just blown away. Like, I know how hard it is to deal with one owner. Like, they got like 30, 32. Like, I see Gary work the room and have all these like big issues. I'd love to just like hear stories from those guys. That's like more of like the professional answer.
Yeah, that's cool. Though.
Personally, my dad passed away about 4 years ago, and God, I would give any day to have him back, and just him and my 2 brothers, and go out. Great. Yeah, I'm a big family guy, and I'd love to have him. I'd love to have my father-in-law. My wife's from Brazil, and I'd love for them to spend more time, and I'd love to bring my son out with them. Yeah,
that's cool.
It's a good answer. You kind of just answered the next one. What sporting memory holds the greatest place in your heart? It had to be winning a Stanley Cup.
Definitely Game 7. Definitely that whole third period. I had this crazy sense of calm about me, and I'm usually like very hyper and intense and not nervous, but like, I don't know, there was something about that game. There was so much pressure that like, I don't know, I just, we're up 3-0. We lose 3 straight. All the media's like, this can go to be like the worst. If we blew that 3-0 lead, I think it was only done like one other time in the NHL. And so in the back of my mind, I'm like, we like built up all this credibility of turning the team around, and then we could just be like a laughing stock of like, hey, same old Panthers, they can't get their shit together, and blew a 3-0 lead. So with all that, for some reason, the way the team was playing, I just had this great confidence that whole third period, and then just being on the ice afterwards with my kids was really cool.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What's something about you most people wouldn't know?
Most people wouldn't know about me? I'm a softie deep down inside. My wife throws on like the romantic comedies. I love it. Like she puts like, Sex in the City or something. It's an old show. Or I think we're watching Virgin River right now. We love This Is Us.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, when I tell some guys at work, they're like, "Are you kidding me?" Like,
my wife,
the military guy.
Yeah, but I'm
my wife loves Virgin River. I haven't seen a single episode. I should get into it.
My wife's, and
that's a good way to bond with her.
I definitely got a soft spot of her.
Yeah, that's great.
What are your professional pet peeves?
these stupid little things like I don't like when we're having a meeting, people don't let other people speak when they interrupt. That drives me crazy. When someone's getting out of an elevator, I don't like when people that are getting on don't let them off.
Yeah, that's a fair one. I like that one.
It drives me crazy. Come on, have respect for someone. Yeah.
Yeah. We had that issue when we were hanging out in New York. Remember, we couldn't get an elevator down.
Yeah, exactly. We couldn't get down.
It was like no one would let us in, man. If you weren't in your current role and you couldn't work in sports, what would be your next dream job?
You know, I've loved so much being with the Viola family. I really like the family office. Like I was a little bit begrudgingly being like, oh, I don't know if I want to take this on. I didn't want to be like a spoiled kid.
Yeah.
But seeing different companies and investments and then like running one of these companies for the Viola family, whatever it is, it's not necessarily the certain industry I would want to be. I definitely know I'm more of a leader and operator versus like advisor. Like when I was in finance at Goldman, I was more of an advisor, and I did pretty good at that. You know, I went to law school. I did an internship at a law firm. I did okay at that, but I'm more of like kind of leading and pushing and inspiring versus giving like great, smart, analytical advice.
Yeah,
so it would
cool.
be something maybe for the family. But I'm loving sports, so I hope they don't pull me out of here.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then next time we're up in Broward County, where do we need to eat?
Yeah, so Fort Lauderdale, if you go to the Conrad Hotel, and I know this because my in-laws are there, they have two great restaurants. They have a Japanese place.
I've eaten at the Japanese place.
Yeah, Takata.
Yeah.
And then they just put an Italian place in the same spot.
Did they?
Yeah, like a little further inside, same hotel, called Vitolo.
Nice.
And it's the most New York style Italian I've seen here. And then the sushi place is phenomenal.
So
yeah.
Takata, is that what you said? They pronounce
Takata.
it?
Yeah, Takata and Vitolo.
The rice that they serve there is fantastic, and a hot bowl, and it kind of cooks into the bowl as you're eating.
Exactly.
I've had this. Proof I've had this.
Yeah. Those are my two favorites. Louis Bossi's pretty good if you need like a good lunch spot, Las Olas. But if you just go to the Conrad Hotel, you got Japanese and Italian restaurant all day.
Two winners.
Yeah.
Matt, awesome spending time with you.
been a
Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
This was
Thanks
awesome.
for coming out.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it means
Thank
a
you.
ton to us that you'd make the drive.
Of course.
And you've got to go back up now?
I do. Yeah.
Is there at least reverse traffic that you get to?
Reverse and also the express lanes they have.
Okay.
So as long as you have like an easy pass kind of thing.
But the helicopter usually skips all that, doesn't it?
Yeah, we
we're
saw
gonna
you
cut
got
for
off
that.
the helicopter from
The
the roof.
Apache?
Anything you guys bring up, I have a story about it. Obviously, I talk a lot. But when I was in the Army, my call sign was Shadow 6. Okay, so I was always on the ground, and they call us the Shadow Platoon because we'd go into houses late at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And there was a guy from an Apache, because you said Apache just now, that I never met him for like the whole year. And his call sign was like Overhead 6 or something like that. But like we recognized each other's voice and we clearly knew each other's call signs. And I mean, there's video of him like we'd go into these towns and I couldn't find the exact house, like 50 homes on top of each other. And he would like go over a certain house and I know which house to go in. Like a year after Iraq, I'm at like the Atlanta airport and this guy walks up. He's like, "Are you Shadow 6?"
No.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. He's like, I saw you one time like on the ground and you look familiar, but I never met him. He's always up in freaking air.
Right.
So,
Wow. That's amazing. He knew
crazy.
your voice as soon as
He
you
knew
said
my
yes.
voice. Yeah, I have a pretty raspy New York accent.
That's amazing.
But anyway, you said Apache, so
Very
you got
cool.
me going. Yeah,
Awesome,
I'm telling
man.
all these military stories. You're bringing up good memories.
I'm sure, though. I mean, that's such a life-shaping time
Yeah,
for anybody.
yeah.
And when you leave, you don't always have opportunities to think about them and
Yeah.
bring them back up and share those stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a general in the Army tell me, like, anytime people ask, like, you got to share this stuff. Like, a lot of times military guys will just put their heads down and, like, almost be, like, too humble and don't want to talk about things. And a lot of them struggle, like, mentally from it, right? But anytime people ask me stuff, I figure they're curious.
You
about
got great
share.
stories. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Well,
Matt.
thanks, yeah,
Appreciate
thanks,
it, man.
guys. This was
Thanks.
awesome. Yeah.